Hey, this is KB. I'm a technologist, thought leader, and self-published author. I've been publishing eBooks, print books, audio, video, and other content online since 2015. I stumbled quite a bit, tried many different types of content, marketing strategies, software tools, and social media streams. Now I'm here to help you learn from my mistakes and find inspiration along the way. We'll take a journey together to leverage your content, dive into practical tips, and test out actionable strategies that move you from posts to profit. This is the Self-Pub Empire Podcast. Hi, welcome back to KB's Self-Pub Empire Podcast. I'm your host, KB. You're going to really enjoy today's episode. I know I did. I have the beta, still in beta, as far as I know, for Amazon's virtual voice system for anybody who writes books, particularly for anyone who's writing novels and things like that. The virtual voice has been available now since about November. It's still in beta, but the number of books has really exploded over the last few months, really from that end of that 2023 in November. It's grown to about 40,000 or so titles with virtual voice or AI narrated voice. Some folks, of course, are upset by this, while others feel that it's really a boon to their self-publishing works because they don't have the time or the resources to have an audiobook reader or a voiceover actor actually read their books. So it does give you a fast way to get to where you want to go with an audiobook. So we're going to take a spin today, go through that a little bit with Amazon's virtual voice and see how it fits together for you, and maybe you can leverage it for your self-publishing. The opposition to it, of course, is kind of obvious. It eliminates the need for a human to narrate. The benefit for self-publishing authors is that they have really that fast path towards getting an audiobook out there with really little to no cost. Really, it's just part of the bookshelf process in KDP. I'm not sure which way really is the best or which side to go on. I will say that fans tend to like to hear the author read their own work. So this may be a good way to get started some way and then maybe eliminate it and then read your own work. But it is a fast way to create an audiobook, and an author can go back maybe and do it later and read it themselves when they have time. There's some pros and cons, of course. We're going to talk about that today and how to get through that. But one of the things I wanted to point out right away is that it's neutral in language, tonality. So some of those best audiobook narrators can really do the inflections, the tone, really bring the characters to life in the story with really good narrating. And so that is definitely something to consider with this. It doesn't do that for you because it really wouldn't necessarily know how. It's quite good. It's actually really, really impressive, but it's not necessarily going to be able to do different voices for different types of characters in the story. But why would you even want to bother with adding on an audiobook? So market growth really is the number one reason here, right? As we're jumping right into this today, let's get some stats out there. The industry, there's some industry analysis that predict the compound annual growth rate really of audiobooks between now and 2030. There's going to be around 25%. That means the market for audiobooks is on track to double in size really within the decade. So within the next 10 years or less, it's going to double. Sales, the figures are tough to get. I will say that. I had a hard time doing research on that. They vary slightly depending on the source. But the audiobook market really has been considered to be valued to be over $5 billion in 2022 and expected to reach nearly $15 billion by 2028. That seems a little high to me, but on the other hand, a lot of people consume audio really heavily. So in the US alone, the audiobook sales did hit roughly 1.8 billion in 2022. So today we're going to jump in with some easy steps on how you can do this yourself if you're in the beta or when Amazon opens this up to everybody for your own book to take that plunge and do a virtual voice for yourself. So we're going to talk through some five easy steps. Hey, I want to tell you about something. Change the topic. I don't know about you, but I like things for free. And I put together a free guide to getting started on Kindle Direct Publishing. This guide is many pages of packed material for free for you to get started and writing your own book and using Kindle Direct Publishing to do it. There's a lot of tips and tricks that I jammed into this document. It's a free ebook, and you can find it on the website, selfpubempire.com/free. All you gotta do is put your email address in there, and we'll get you that free book as soon as we possibly can through the magic of the interwebs. And so I hope you enjoyed the free book. Please give it a try. I think you'll find out, judge for yourself, that it's very useful information. I've been publishing books in Kindle Direct Publishing for many years now, and I think this will help you because I ran into all kinds of pitfalls, and maybe I can help you avoid a few, and you can get your book out, your masterpiece, out to the public, out to your fans, and have something there that will be out on Amazon for the ages. And remember, with Kindle Direct Publishing, it's all print on demand, so there's absolutely no inventory needed, and Amazon will basically sell it for you. So go ahead, get out there, selfpubempire.com/free, and check it out. It's the first entry there for the free getting started with Kindle Direct Publishing. I hope you enjoy it. All right, let's jump in. Amazon Virtual Voice. Really, there are 5 easy steps. That's the way I divided it. Number 1, go to your bookshelf, open your bookshelf, and find an ebook that you've written. It has to be an ebook. You have to do that first. Select the one you want. Assuming that it's going to work for you, it'll show you the button to say that you can create a virtual voice. 2, test and select that virtual voice. So you're going to go in there and you're going to pick out the voice you like. We'll dive into that. 3, set your pricing. I thought this was really, really interesting because you can't do this through ACX, the audiobook publishing section for people who want to write their own or do their own audiobooks, but I'll talk about that in detail as well. 4, you review that with the Virtual Voice Studio. Review your book. It's actually kind of cool. You have a studio that you can make some modifications to, and it's not all-inclusive. You can, again, do the voices like we were talking about before with different characters, but it certainly gives you some things that you can work through to enhance the book a little bit. And 5, just go through the publishing steps at the end and hit the button and let Amazon do the rest. So let's jump in with that first step. You want to open your bookshelf and find an ebook. So this is sometimes harder than you think. It has to conform to Virtual Voices requirements, and these are really from Amazon. And this is the list for it, right from top to bottom for the most part. They are changing this as they go, of course, a little bit because it's in beta, but here we go. First and foremost, the book must have a live status. Pre-order books are really not eligible. Live status means your ebook has been fully published and is out there. It has to have been in that live status for at least 7 days. So it has to be out there and not removed and have been reviewed and out there live for 7 days. The book must have a table of contents. Now, this isn't a table of contents that you write yourself. This is the table of contents using the ebook formatting that Kindle will do, using Kindle Create, for example. And you're going to want to look at that to make sure that your ebook conforms to the right standards. But it has to have that appropriate table of contents. The book cannot be in a publishing state or status. We talked about this a little bit. It has to be live. English must be the book's primary language as well. So they're only in English for right now, but I'm sure they're working on expanding it, assuming all things work well for this particular offering that Amazon's going to have for everyone. So the book must also be suitable for audiobook conversion. So this means that like coloring books and cookbooks really aren't really good for that kind of work. So that's really not going to work. Novels, narratives, poetry, those kinds of things, those are suitable for that kind of, for the audiobooks. Again, you have to be careful. You certainly don't want to have already made an audiobook yourself for the book. It won't, you can't go backwards. You can't go back to Virtual Voice. So if it has an existing audiobook that you created previously, there's no point in doing it anyway. I don't think anybody would do that. But it can't have an existing audiobook. There's a size limit too. So the book must be less than about 240,000 words, or roughly 26 hours of narration. There's a little bit of variance in that. And Audible uses about 9,300 words per hour as a baseline. So just to take that into consideration. So it really can't be War and Peace. It can't be something quite that large, but something pretty big. 240,000 is a pretty big book. The book must, of course, have a cover, but if you publish it as an ebook, you'll have that for the most part as well. It cannot be in the public domain. So those things like the old books that are out there, Think and Grow Rich, How to Win Friends, Influence People, things that are in the public domain, C.S. Lewis's works, those kinds of things, those are not eligible for narration through the virtual voice. So really, once you have those requirements, you find the right ebook, you've got the right thing, all you really need to do is click the button that says Add Audiobook with Virtual Voice, and the process gets started. All right. Number 2, you have about 6 voices to choose from. So you get to choose your voice. That's the second step as we go through our virtual voice tour here. There's some American and some British AI voices. So again, this is all English, but it is American and British only. The age is roughly 30 to 40 years old. They've talked about adding new voices and accents, but I haven't seen anything since November 2023 come up in the list. So it's really just those 6. I kind of wanted to play some samples and get those recorded here, but I was a little nervous about possibly some copyright infringement from Amazon on that one. So I didn't want to do that. But you want to play through the samples and see which one you like. There's a couple of male voices, a couple of female voices, British and English, and that is it's a pretty good set of voices to choose from. And I think they were pretty natural, in my opinion, and really fairly expressive, even though certainly not as expressive as a real audio narrator would probably get to. So you get to choose your voice at this point, and I would do that consideration very carefully. Match it up with something that makes a lot of sense for you for the book and the tone of the book. Number 3, you next want to consider setting your pricing. This feels to me a little strange. Having grown up in the time frame of CreateSpace, then it became KDP, and they also had ACX as part of their ecosystem, and it still is, of course, to create audiobooks with. You never get to set your price in ACX. So if you're recording your own book as an author and you're recording it for your own voice, it felt a little strange to me that with ACX, of course, you never did get to set that. It was dependent heavily on how big the book actually is. However, here, the setting of the price is really up to you. So you can set prices between $3.99 in US dollars and $14.99, and you get a 40% royalty right off the top. So if it's something really well put together, very technical, perhaps detailed information, setting a $14.99 price isn't really too bad. And especially if someone wants to buy an expensive book, that's actually a pretty good deal for a virtual voice audio narrated book. Just some factors to consider. It is, to me, like I said, a little strange because ACX, you don't get to set the price at all. But here you get to set your price based on what you feel is best. Makes some sense that way because it is a virtual voice, and it doesn't really take long for it to grind that out. So, third step is to set your pricing. Fourth step is to go into the Virtual Voice Studio. Highly recommend it. It's actually a lot of fun. You get to go in there, you get to preview your book, and see how the virtual voice actually functioned with the text it is that you have, that you put in your own book yourself. You can even listen to the whole thing if you like. I want to comment about the 6 voices in number 2 that I forgot to mention. And those sample voices have a specific sentence that it uses for every voice. Here in the Virtual Voice Studio, you get to hear it actually speak your book, which is really kind of cool to actually hear it start reading your book out loud. One of the tips for tools that I like to put out, and I'll put this out in a future podcast, is actually I use Microsoft Word to actually write anything for my books and so on and so forth. There's actually a way for it to read your book out loud as well. It's actually baked into Word, and it sounds pretty similar and quite good. For editing, there's nothing finer than having someone read your book out loud to you so you can very painfully hear the mistakes, the flubs, and maybe the commas are in the wrong place when it's read out loud to you. To me, that works really, really well because when I look at it on the screen when I'm trying to write it, I do not do well with proofreading. I'm just going to say that out loud. Anyway, back to Virtual Voice Studio itself. You listening to your recording, very handy. You get to kind of mess with the pauses, the pronunciation, word speed. Those are all available features that you can work with on any of these things within your book. I found it personally to be really easy to work with, and I've been experimenting with it quite a bit just to see all the features and see how that actually works. So I recommend giving it a try and seeing how those things fit together, and try it out for yourself, see what you think, experiment with it a little bit just to tweak it to get what you want. I can see someone with maybe a really large book having some problems with this, trying to do this for your entire book. It's a lot. It would be a lot of work and a lot of editing in the Virtual Voice Studio, but you can do it if you wish. All right, you've got your virtual voice put together. You've worked in the studio. You like how it sits. Sounds really good, I hope, for your sake. And so really then the next thing is, of course, you've got your pricing set. You want to go to publish. Once you're done, your edits are complete, you can hit the publish button. Publishing goes through really those same checks and reviews before it goes live as usual. Amazon does a bunch of checks on it to make sure it is correct and working appropriately. My friend and I call it the grinder. So we push it through the grinder and let them grind on it and see if they reject it. So far, I haven't had any of them rejected, which is kind of obvious considering that if your ebook has been accepted and is functioning appropriately, the audio narration and the virtual voice AI, there shouldn't be any issues or hiccups with it. It really should work pretty much the same. Then it's available with your book on your bookshelf in KDP. That's really all there is to it. It's really truly those 5 easy steps. You've already done the hard work. You've created your book. You've created an ebook out of it with the appropriate table of contents, and you can hit the button, select your voice, select your price, and off you go. You have a book that is an audiobook, which is pretty slick. That's not bad at all. So sounds great, right? Absolutely. Sounds wonderful. But there are a couple caveats. First and foremost, as I already talked about, it's English only. So it's English reading only, British English or English. The voices are there for those. But, if it contains words from other languages, so this is interesting, the AI may stumble on words from other languages that the English speaker is trying to pronounce. So you have characters with dialogue, and the dialogue might be in other languages. The AI could potentially stumble. I personally haven't tried this out myself, but keep that in mind. That's something that could really truly happen with the AI voice, trying to find words that it's reading English, but they're actually like a character speaking Spanish or something like that. It could stumble on that. Number 2, virtual voice is not perfect. It will skip words potentially, and it may not really have that full range, of course, of depth. We talked about that a little bit with tonality and how that sounds. Your characters may not really come alive like a human narrator can really make that happen. And if it has problem with certain words, like if you're using like large words, I can see in a technical book, maybe technical documentation or really something really detailed, I can see that maybe being an issue with the technical words maybe being skipped by the AI because it doesn't know how to pronounce it. But certainly with a novel, the human narrator is going to make your characters really come alive. This isn't really going to do that for you. Another interesting caveat is that really you pick the voice for the whole book. That may or may not be good, maybe a huge limitation for you, but you really have to choose just one from that original set, and it reads the entire book. So that voice is the voice you're going to be using, whatever it is that you pick, and it's going to read through the whole thing for you. You don't get to change it around, so you can't make that work. Finally, I thought this was interesting. I didn't know this, but I happened to find this in some of the documentation. If there's promotional material in your ebook that it's considered to be promotional material, you can't really trick it. It will not read it. It's going to have to do certain things. It'll pick that up potentially if you're trying to do like an ad or promotional material. It's considering you're trying to trick the AI, right? To read something to your audio listener. Now, frankly, that's not good practice anyway. You don't really want to do that to your reader, your listener, really more specifically. Readers wouldn't mind. They can just flip the page. But if you're having the AI narrator try to read a promotional ad for something, that's a really good best practice anyway. So you're going to want to remove that kind of info in there if you have something about your other books or something to that effect. Maybe not other books, but certainly other promotional materials. You're really not going to want to have it in there because it's not going to want to do that. So it will remove it, and who knows, it may even reject it. I haven't heard one way or the other if anybody's come across that, but if you do, just throw a comment in there for me and let me know if you've run into that yourself. All right. And there you have it. That's it. It's virtual voice. Is it a quick win? Or is it a threat to the audiobook market for the audiobook readers and the narrators, the really good ones? I don't know. You'll have to decide for yourself and see what you want to do with it. It is a fast way to get to a narrated audiobook very quickly, but if you want something much more professional, you're still going to have to go with a human after this time, my friend. So I certainly hope that you enjoyed this podcast. It was a bit of a short one because this really is virtual voice. That's really that easy to do, and you can just click the button and step through it and have an audiobook. I found it to be pretty amazing, so I hope you enjoyed this podcast, and I hope that once again, this helps you go from posts to profits. Thanks for listening. We'll see you in the next one.
Hey, congratulations. You just listened to another episode of the Self-Pub Empire podcast. I really hope you found something inspiring, useful, and actionable for your own entrepreneurial and business aspirations. Let's keep connecting as solopreneurs, authors, and online creators of all kinds. For more information, how-tos, great tools, and show notes for the show, head over to selfpubempire.com/podcast. Until next time, let's continue moving from posts to profit.